Hi there everyone, this is Adam here for another one of our community awareness mini podcasts that we're doing as part of our NCS Community Awareness Days. I've got Jolene with me from Carers in Bedfordshire. Hi Jolene.
Hi.
Hi. So obviously normally, well actually you probably wouldn't have known this, but I'm saying to other organisations that have previously attended our community awareness days, which were a day thing where you as organisations would have stalls and then young people would come in and then ask you lots of questions about your organisation. So, you know, with the lockdown as it is at the moment, we thought the videos would be a good idea and a nice snapshot actually of your organisation. And one of the things I'm realising, I'm actually having more of a conversation with the individuals than I would on the day, because on the day, normally I'm sort of rushing about and sort of making sure everyone's fed and watered and there's lots of young people interacting with you. So this has been quite nice for me. Having been seen carers in Bedfordshire, I'm trying to avoid the word carers in beds because I guess that can have a certain connotation, really. I don't know if there's a short way that you commonly use, but I'll continue to say carers in Bedfordshire. They've been there before with their stand. And before I get into a bit about the organisation, it's obviously about caring, but I'll probably share with you, perhaps after you do a little intro about the organisation, a young person that I spoke to on the day, and it might offer a bit of a perspective from young people on the NCS who are also carers. But if you want to say a little bit about carers in Bedfordshire, and you've already said that you've only been in the role a couple of months.
Yeah.
So yeah, as best you can under the circumstances with the lockdown as well. So yeah, go ahead. Tell us about the organisation. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's great to speak to you. What we do is we support the people in our community who care for usually family members who can't manage without them. And that can take a lot of different forms. It might be a young person who looks after maybe a sibling or a parent with a disability. Might be an adult who looks after a husband or wife with mental health condition, or maybe a parent with dementia, or any really combinations of those things. But whatever the circumstances, we know that being a carer is really difficult. It demands a lot of time and a lot of energy. So what we do as a charity is offer support to those people, again, in lots of different forms, one-to-one support where that's needed, lots of advice and guidance, practical skills as well. We organise peer support groups, but I think most importantly, we listen, we understand, and we don't judge people for what they're going through, what they're feeling. And I think especially recently during the lockdown, we've been calling carers who we know just to chat and see how they are, because we know that being a carer is difficult at the best of times, and this isn't the best of times at the moment. So people might be a lot more isolated. So we're just trying to stay in touch and make sure everyone's okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One of the things that always intrigues me about yourself as a service, but obviously you're providing things like support groups and one-to-ones. Mm-hmm. I always feel like there's a balance between the young person's commitments in terms of the person they're looking after and then the kinds of support and services that they can access. I mean, how do you find that as a balance? How do you manage to help them with that?
Our young carer support workers tend to meet people in schools. So as you say, coming to a third place, you've got home, you've got school, both of which are quite demanding. So adding a third place isn't always, easiest to do. So we're in schools, working with people there, and that's where we tend to meet people.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've only been in the job for 2 months, but I wondered, like, what will be your role? Let's say, once perhaps the lockdown lifts, or what are you doing at the moment, perhaps?
Right. So I'm fundraising manager, which means it's really raising money to support the work of the charity. The more we raise, the more services we can offer. So at the moment, I'm mostly writing to organisations who give grants for our sort of work. I'm getting to know the local organisations and starting to speak to local businesses who might be able to help us out. And also creating appeals, thinking about why people might want to support us and helping them to do that.
Mm-hmm. Is part of that writing funding applications and bids?
Yes, so things like that. We do get some money from the local authority and NHS, but the rest of the work needs to come from other sources.
Is that something you've done before, bid writing and funding applications?
I've done fundraising before. I've worked for the Trussell Trust and for Bart's charity in London, but actually writing biz, this is my first time doing that, so I'm learning a lot. It's been
So with bid writing is something that I've got experience with myself, and it was a role that I'd never trained for, really. I fancied myself as a bit of a writer because there's a certain amount of written ability that you might need, and sentence structure, and taking perspective of the reader so that it makes sense. And I was going to ask you, like, is that something that you got experience with before, or are you kind of learning that on the job? Or
I think, like you, I enjoy writing. I enjoy using words creatively to really demonstrate something, demonstrate a need, and how a donation might help. In terms of actually writing and structuring that kind of bid, less so. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of writing job applications, actually.
Yes, it does. Yeah, sort of outcome focused stuff as well. And
yeah.
With the sort of needs as well, identifying the needs of the community. What are you finding are the sort of needs of carers? What have you associated with things that you apply for funding for? What are they requiring? What are they needing?
Well, a recent application I've been working on is support for young carers who have reached crisis point. So we do find that young carers in particular possibly don't even recognise themselves as carers. They're just looking after someone who needs their help, and that's fantastic, but they don't necessarily put that label of carer on themselves. And so they won't know even to ask for help. And so when the point comes when they really need help, when it's really got completely, utterly overwhelming, that then they've hit that crisis point without anyone having seen it coming. And so we're applying for funding for sort of closer one-to-one support, but also counselling as well for young carers, which is something we can offer to adult carers at the moment, but we want to extend that service to young carers too.
Last year, one of the NCS participants, I saw her visit carers in Bedfordshire, and then she kind of wandered away after getting what she needed. And I said, I hope you don't mind, but I'd kind of just wanted to ask you, because I overheard a little bit about like her experience as a carer, and I quizzed her really on being, well, no, actually, I started by just saying quite surprised that she managed to get on the NCS, because I think about the commitments of the NCS with, certainly 1 week away, and aspects of the second week being away as well, and the kinds of planning that might need. I didn't go into too much, I didn't want to pry too hard, but the impression that I got from her is there was a tremendous amount of preparation that was needed for her to actually go away and be involved in the NCS. And even as I was talking to her, it almost seemed like her mind was still periodically elsewhere. And I wonder if that was sort of a theme of some young people that you work with, where they have to put others first, it seems to me, most of the time, it seems.
Yeah, I think that's certainly what I've come to understand about carers, young carers in particular, that they've got a lot of responsibility, that and they potentially have even sort of grown up with that responsibility, and so it's become second nature. But yes, they've got school, they've got home, potentially they're doing a lot of work, a lot of housework, a lot of cooking, perhaps if they're got a sibling perhaps with a learning disability and that person needs a lot of supervision, then that's all lots of drains on their time. And that they can then take part in NCS as well is amazing, really, because it shows a lot of dedication and a lot of organisational skills as well to try and make all of that happen.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the big things that they come away with, I guess, the organisational skills. I remember as I was talking to her, we were kind of tying it into the upcoming social action project that she had, and and it was clear that she was an organised person. And I think I speculated with her about, are you thinking about doing a social action project with carers in Bedfordshire? And it was something she was thinking about and then would bring to the group. And it seemed to me that she was well placed from a personal experience to do something around social action, which I think is certainly some of the best projects that we've had have been because one of the team members has had their life affected in a certain way and want to support a charity or organisation that has supported them or supports others that have the same issues. So yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener for me actually. I'd never really got the chance to sort of talk to a carer slash young carer really. So I've tried to walk the line between, being a curious person and wanting to expand my own
Yep.
knowledge, but not wanting to pry, because I think it seemed, because you alluded to this earlier about the non-judgmental nature of yourself as a service, because I got the sense that there could be some aspects of shame attached to, not really wanting to talk about the other person
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something, whether it's about caring or anything else, there's always, I think, sometimes a sense of, yes, you don't want to appear to be nosy, you don't want to be prying into someone's personal life, but sometimes as well people do want the opportunity to open up, and sometimes I think the right question at the right time can be that opportunity to just to help someone tell that story and relieve perhaps some of that pressure. But as I say, it's always a balancing act. You don't want to go too far with that, do you?
Yeah. I'd like to think that I did my best in my own little socially awkward way, I suppose. But yeah, so with social action, we talked a little bit before recording about what opportunities there are for young people on the NCS to support you as an organisation, and I know that you're the fundraising manager, and obviously that's the main sort of focus at the moment. But I wondered about other things like, we talked a bit about perspective taking and young people being able to do projects on young carers, not like an experiment exactly, but when you said earlier about the opportunity to talk, and I wondered if there might be something in social action about that, about recording someone's story or documenting a day in the life of, or something along those lines. It feels to me like there might be opportunities around technology that we often talk about young people being quite adept at. There's video editing software on phones, and everything can be done on the phone. So maybe would that be something, do you think, would be of interest to carers in Bedfordshire?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's a really great idea. Something I've realised since taking on this job is that I think we all know carers in some form or other, and it might not be at the extreme end of spending all your time caring for someone, but I think we tend to know more people than we think who are looking after someone who actually probably wouldn't manage terribly well without them. And so, yeah, sharing those stories would be fantastic, whether that's a video interview, or as you say, documenting a day in the life of, just to raise awareness of carers, and potentially also pointing other people in the direction of carers in Bedfordshire, because if people aren't accessing help, then maybe we can help them, and maybe that would be good for everyone.
Yeah, and there's something about the story that rarely gets told, I suppose. I imagine you hear a lot of those in terms of your youth support groups. You're going to hear a lot of those stories, and it feels like the stories are shared among young carers. But in terms of people's awareness of what a young carer goes through, I think is far less common. And certainly from owning this, I'm quite ignorant of it until I spoke to the young lady last year about what her life is like. And she didn't come at it from a pity angle. She was just explaining to me the sort of levels of organisation and the preparation and the skills, I guess, that she's got as a result. She was very independent, so there's something to be said about some of the value, perhaps. I wonder if that's something that you recognise in your support groups about, although this is difficult, are you also aware that you've generated skills in this area or that area? Is that ever focused on?
Yeah, I mean, because of lockdown, I haven't been able to go to any of these peer support groups yet, but I can definitely see that, I hear from my colleagues that, carers of all ages, that they're resilient, very tough. They can, just get on with things. And as we've said before, you've got organisational skills. And so, carers are, yes, they are tough, they're resilient, and they do get on with things like that. But yeah, I imagine it's really great for people to be able to meet people who understand, so with their peers who are also carers, because they say, yeah, I get it. They don't need to explain it. When you're speaking to someone and you realise that you're not alone, I think in any circumstance that's a really great feeling to have. But there are lots of young carers in Bedfordshire, so we know of about 2,500.
Wow.
Yeah, and those are the people we do know of. And our youngest carer is 5 years old. So I can't even imagine what that's like. But yeah, so spreading awareness of that is really important. And I think the more it's talked about, the more people will realise that, people care in all circumstances and, can use support. A friendly listening ear is sometimes really important.
I sometimes think when I was thinking about how people can access the services and the kind of preparations that need to be in place for them to leave their person that they're caring for, the word respite comes up for me, and the sort of somebody coming in to support the person that needs care while the young person gets to do something. Is that something that you do or get involved in?
Not in actually providing respite in that sense, but we can help people access other services. So what we know is that there is lots of support available, and perhaps in different little pockets, and we can provide that advice and those links to say, this is a person you need to contact in this organisation, and then you will perhaps get some respite or something like that, or this is able to help someone access a day service, particularly we're talking about people with dementia. There are day services and that kind of respite available.
Yeah, there was a really naive part of me that thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a social action project where 8 of the 16 young people were able to offer the respite while the other set of the team took the young person out for a day. But I understand there's obviously a lot of safeguarding concerns around that, and that being, it would probably need to be a qualified person that provides the respite would make sense. But I mean, that's kind of the balance that we try to strike with our projects as well, is the sort of heartfelt idea of wanting to do good, and trying to match it up with some of the restrictions or the limitations of organisations, and certainly safeguarding as well. So those that are listening to this, please bear that in mind when you're looking to support carers in Bedfordshire. Have conversations with Jolene, because sometimes those conversations you can find the middle ground somewhere, and I think that's been really good. Thank you very much for that, Jolene. I'm going to wrap up now.
Okay, no problem.
So just to let you know that we should hopefully have a video up within a few weeks, and I'll include all your contact details that you gave me before we recorded within the comments or the blurb, I should call it, because there's seemingly no other word for it. There's comments, which you comment on YouTube, but the thing that you add for the video is called something else that no one's defined yet. So I'm going to call it blurb. So in the blurb is the contact details. Thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully I'll see you in person at a future event.
Absolutely. Yeah, really nice speaking to you. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.